Hello guys, thanks for joining. My name's Jai. For those of you who I haven't met before, I'm the trainer in FAE for BenQ Australia, and today we'll be having a quick look at the BenQ IFP RP series. Just an overview of that particular interactive flat panel series, and this is hosted in conjunction with Toshiba, obviously as well. So let's have a look at the agenda today. So first we'll have a quick look at the hardware overview, so the components used and some of that tech that's involved with our interactive flat panel. We'll take a quick look at our healthcare, and healthcare is a real key focus for BenQ in all of our technology, in fact. And so we'll have a bit of a dive into that and see what that's all about. And then we'll dive into some of the software as well, including our digital whiteboard, which is known as EasyWrite 5.0, and a couple of those key collaborative components there, such as TeamPost and Cloud Whiteboard. We'll also have a look at annotating outside of that digital whiteboard, so on different sources or over different apps, and that's done via our floating toolbar. And then lastly, we'll have a look at InstaShare, which is our wireless casting protocol and allows us to cast from our own personal devices to our RP series interactive flat panels there as well. Obviously, at the end of this session, we'll have plenty of time for any questions. It is only a 45-minute session, so I'll be sort of ripping and tearing through this content today for you, but we'll make sure we're able to answer any questions you have as we conclude here today. If you do have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat there, and we'll review those at the end as well. All right, so let's have a look here at our RP series IFP. So first and foremost, we have three different sizes of this interactive flat panel, or this IFP, and that's 65-inch, 75-inch, and 86-inch models there. And you'll notice at the top we have some of those healthcare features there as well, and I'll explain those a little bit more in a moment as well. So let's have a look at our design and some of those hardware components. So first of all, it is a 4K capable screen there as well, and we incorporate 7H tempered glass. So this is a really robust design and really solid design. 7H tempered glass you'll actually find in mobile phone manufacturing and that kind of thing as well. So it's designed for touch functionality. Moving down the panel there, we have a built-in microphone array, and this lives either side of the panel there, so left and right sides in the bezel, and this is made in conjunction with our soundbar, which is quite unique to BenQ as well. Because the microphone and the soundbar are both developed by us, we've incorporated noise reduction and echo cancellation there as well, so you won't get any of that crazy feedback when you're trying to record or when you're using it for video conferencing, for instance. As we move further down the panel, on top of our soundbar there lives a little pen tray. And this is great to just gain easy access to your annotation tools or your remote control as well. Our panels come with two passive styluses when you purchase a product, and it also comes with its own remote control as well. And I'll dive into the remote control in a moment. Also, I've mentioned our soundbar previously. So we have two 16-watt speakers in there, and this soundbar has individual bass drivers as well. So we get really clean and crisp audio quality when we're playing back our multimedia or for video conferencing as well. Within this soundbar live a couple of really cool features. On the left side there of the soundbar, we have USB ports. So we can just plug and play with a USB stick or a hard drive and plug it directly into our panel and access our content that way, which is really easy. You don't have to go around searching for the ports in the rear or the side of the panel there, like a lot of other manufacturers. On the right-hand side, we have our front buttons, or our hotkeys, more appropriately termed, and these allow you quick access to commonly used features like settings, home screen, and volume controls. And then in the middle of that soundbar lives a little NFC sensor. And this NFC sensor allows us to tap on with our own unique profiles, our own personalized profiles via NFC card, and load that profile onto the IFP. That enables us to do a couple of things. We can personalize that IFP, so we can have our own personalized settings like volume and brightness controls. And obviously our wallpaper and our desktop icons as well can be personalized to how we see fit. The other cool feature of being able to use your own profile on the IFP is that we're able to access our own cloud storage. And so we've been able to link cloud drives like Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox, and we can access those contents directly on the panel without any further sign-in. So it's really efficient to do that. And not only can we access that content from those drives, but we can actually save directly back to those drives as well. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment too. Let's have a look at the remote control though. So the remote comes with the panel, obviously, and it's purpose made for these BenQ RP series panels. And there's a couple of cool features on here as well. Starting in the top right-hand corner of that remote, we have a digital pointer built in. And this has two different functions. So you can see in that image to the right there that we actually have a spotlight feature, which enables us to draw focus to a particular part of our presentation when we're presenting to a meeting or during a collaborative session. And then we can also turn that spotlight just into a red dot pointer, similar to what we would do with a laser pointer. But with traditional laser pointers, if you point one of those at a screen, it actually absorbs that light, so you can't see the laser pointer. So this just creates a red dot on the screen that you can use by motion control with the remote and move that around the screen, the same as what you can do with the spotlight there as well. You can see on the left-hand side there, we have an app switcher, so we can just jump between our opened apps there as well, just like we would do on a mobile phone or tablet. And then we have a couple of cool features as far as presenting goes. We can freeze the screen, so if we're showing a video, we can freeze that image, or we can blank that screen out just to bring focus back to that presenter as well. All right, let's move along. All right, let's talk about our healthcare side of things. So I mentioned before, this is a key focus from BenQ, and we sort of lead the way as far as technology goes with interactive flat panels with healthcare. You'll notice down the bottom of the screen there, we utilize low blue light, flicker-free, and anti-glare technologies. And these are quite common amongst other manufacturers now, not just in interactive flat panels, but in other screen devices like monitors and like televisions as well. But we were among the first to start utilizing that technology in our interactive flat panels. But I want to bring attention to the top two features here with the germ-resistant screen and the CO2 sensor. So these are unique to BenQ. No other panel manufacturer actually utilizes this technology. The CO2 sensor will monitor, obviously, those CO2 levels within the meeting space or within that room where the panel's placed. And they've done studies to show that the higher the CO2 levels are within that room, the less focus or it will affect concentration negatively there within that room and within that meeting. And so that's important to keep track of that. And we just have a little widget that we can place on our desktop there to monitor that as we go along. And then germ-resistant screen. This is becoming a key focus, not just in corporate space, but just in society in general. Obviously, we're dealing with this global pandemic at the moment, and there's been a real focus on health and hygiene, not just in the meeting space or in the classroom, but obviously within society in general. And I'm sure you've all been affected by that. So germ-resistant screen is basically a silver ionic coating that we cover our screens with, and it disrupts the cell division of germs and bacteria up to a 99% strike rate there. So it's a great feature to keep that meeting space really clean and hygienic there as well. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention also. We're going to jump into some software now. Before I jump on InstaShare, I'm just going to jump over to my panel and share my panel so you get a good idea of what the interface looks like there on our RP series. So you guys should be able to see that. If you have your Zoom bar down the bottom, just click on your actual on the actual meeting there, and that should disappear for you. But you'll notice here, this is a typical login of our panel when you first boot the panel up. So this is what we call our Android home screen, and our panels do run on an Android operating system natively. That's built into the panel there as well. And a couple of things you'll notice here. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is down in this bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a picture of myself and my name there. And that just indicates that I've logged into this panel already with my own unique profile. So this background is a background that I've chosen. And then these widgets, all these desktop icons, I should say, along here have been personalized by me. So I've added those specifically to my desktop for those shortcuts. You'll notice that we have a clock here in that CO2 widget I mentioned previously. So we're on moderate CO2 levels in this room. I'm in a small room at the moment, so that's quite good. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is I mentioned being able to log in with my profile and obviously personalize that, but I want to show you how easy it is to access your cloud storage as well. I have a desktop icon here that says AMS files, and this is like our file explorer as such, like you find on a Windows PC. I've obviously got a desktop shortcut there, but if I go down here into our apps, which is this four squares icon, that'll bring up my apps here, and I can just access the AMS file structure through here. So I'll click on that. I'm using a mouse at the moment, so anything I do with a mouse, you would generally do that with touch, either with the stylus or with your own hands as well. I'm just using a mouse, so it's easy for me to draw your attention to what I'm actually doing here. And you'll notice here straight away that I have local devices here. So we have internal memory built into the board. It's 32 gig of memory there, but then we have the software loaded on top of that in the operating system as well. So you'll end up with around 20 gig of free space there, just with internal storage. If I had a USB drive plugged in here, it would also appear in this little panel here with local devices, and I could pull contents from that and view those or save directly back to those drives as well. The other thing I can do is that, and you'll notice here, is that we have cloud service, and this allows me to access my cloud drives that I've linked previously here as well. So I mentioned I can access Google Drive, Dropbox, and OneDrive, and I can see that these are linked obviously with this little link or chain icon here as well. But I can simply click on that drive and I can access my own drive or any shared drives I'm associated with as well. I'll click on my drives just to show you this, and so it'll obviously read that cloud storage. And you can see here that I have all my files accessible. I can dive into those folders, and access all those files on the IFP itself. I can also save back to any of these as well. So whether it's Google Drive, Dropbox, or OneDrive, I could save directly back to any of these drives. So really easy to get your hands on your content that you've saved from your PC or from your tablet or from your phone on those cloud drives previously. So like I said, it's a one-tap login with your NFC card, and you can access these directly without any further sign-in there as well. So that's a really handy feature. The other thing I'll bring your attention to, you just saw me click these side arrows here, either side of our panel, left and right, and they just give me access to a quick menu here. And so I can go home or back or open up my apps manager here. I'll open this really briefly as well, just so you can see this. And this is just like your mobile phone or tablet where you can open up that app manager and see what's running. You can hard close these apps as well, or it allows me to bounce in between these apps as an app shortcut also. But I'm just going to go back to my home screen. And what we'll do now is dive into EasyWrite, which is our whiteboarding solution. And that just lives down here in the toolbar with the big easy icon here. So once we bounce into this, this will just launch our digital whiteboard. And you'll notice down the base of our whiteboard here, we have a whole bunch of different tools. Now we're short on time today, so I'm not going to dive into all of this content. If you do have any further questions about some of the content that I've breezed over today, we're more than happy to address that in the Q&A, or you can reach out to your Toshiba representatives and they'll be able to help you out there as well. But straight away, I can just start annotating. This will look a little fragmented on the video conference here, but it is quite fluid and smooth. We utilize fine IR touch technology, and so the annotation is very fluid there as well. But basically, I can launch this whiteboard and start annotating straight away, which is a really cool feature. There's a couple of key features I want to bring your attention to just in my overview of EasyWrite. And the first one lives within this toolbox here. So within this, we have a couple of different tool sets, things like calculator, or if we want to time the meeting or the collaborative session, we can utilize the timer there. But there's a few different ones I want to draw your attention to. The first one here is Team Post, and this is great for digital Kanban charts or to-do lists. So we could have a to-do, doing, done, or a progression here with different panels, and we can associate a different color to each of those panels. And then we can basically annotate in each of those panels in a different color there. So it's great for sort of showing that progression or being able to notarize your meeting or your project at the moment. You can then save this as a different, as a separate file as well. So we can hit the Save This icon here, and that'll just save that as a PDF document. We can also share this by pressing this button here on the left-hand side, and that will draw a QR code up, and we'll be able to save that on our mobile phone or tablet as well. So that's just a quick cool app to use for that kind of Kanban chart or to-do list. The other one I want to bring your attention to, and I might just clear my whiteboard here. Obviously, we can erase, so I can use my my touch to draw a circle around that and erase, or I can erase the whole board. But the other app I wanted to show you within here, or the other tool, is what we call Easy Diagram. I'm going to bounce up to the board just so it's a little bit easier for me to write, but I'm just going to draw a quick flow chart, and you'll see how this Easy Diagram works. So just bear with me. All right, so you see I've just drawn a real basic flow chart there, and you can see already that EasyWrite has tried to understand what I'm trying to draw there. Once I hit this identify button down the bottom, I can click on that, and that digitizes that hand-drawn flow chart. I can then export this back into my digital whiteboard there, and that just creates its own image. And then I could annotate within that with my annotation tools down the bottom here as well. We can obviously change the color and change the thickness there also. So I can then annotate in there as well. So that's really great for digitizing those flowcharts that you may otherwise hand write or spend hours on within another program there as well. So a really nifty feature. The other feature our panels have is we have handwriting recognition built into the panel as well. So I'll show you how that works too. I'll just write a word on the board here. So you see there, I just wrote hello in a terrible scroll, and then I just drew a circle around it with our selection tool down here that lives in our toolbar as well. And you'll notice it's picked up that annotation, and within this I can rotate that annotation, or I can delete that with the cross. But down in the bottom right hand corner here, we have a magic one button, and so if I click on that, it'll actually digitize that handwritten word into a digital format, and this becomes its own image. And so I can use pinching gestures to resize that, and then I can just move that around the panel, that whiteboard space as I see fit as well. So a really cool feature that's built into the panel there also. A couple of other things I want to bring your attention to too. If you're working on projects here and you want to use commonly used templates, we have a couple of different templates here. But the main thing I want to bring your attention to is this little plus symbol here. So this allows us to import our own background templates into the whiteboard. So if you have a company logo there or a certain template that you use frequently, you'd be able to import that from your cloud storage, or if you plug in a USB drive into the front of the panel, you can just import that in and use that. And what will happen when I do that, I'm just going to go to another page here. What will happen when I use a background here, and I'll just use a grid paper background for today's purpose, it anchors that template to the background. So anything I import as far as images, and I can import images or documents as well, that will live on top of that background. Or if I perform any annotation here, that will just go over that background, and it won't move that template at all. Even if I hit the selection tool, I still can't actually select that background at all. So it anchors it right to the back of that whiteboard page there, and it's good to go to use to continue your session there as well. You'll notice just then I added another page here, and so our whiteboard doesn't work on an infinite whiteboard scenario. It works on a page system similar to PowerPoint or like PDFs, for instance. And so in any whiteboarding session, we can have up to 15 pages here, which is a heap of room for whiteboarding space. And there's a couple of things I can do here. I can change the order of these whiteboarding pages here. You can see I have thumbnails there, so I can identify exactly what's on each page, or I can duplicate these pages as well if I want to show progression from one page to the next and add additions to that second page also. And obviously I can delete those pages if we no longer require them to. So there's kind of an overview of some of the cool tools that are built in. If we head over to the left side here, down the bottom, we can obviously save this. Let me just move this out of the way. So we can hit the save button here, and then I can select what page I want just by ticking the box here on either of those pages. And we can save that in two different ways. We can save it as a PDF file, or we can save each of those pages as a separate image file. And I can just select that obviously just by checking the box here. And the great thing is, saving it in this format allows me to read this on other devices. So it's not specific to the BenQ panel. I could save this, add this to my cloud drive, and then have someone else access that PDF, for instance, and see what we did during that whiteboarding session. So that's a really cool feature as well. Once I hit confirm here, and I'll just hit confirm, it'll allow me to pick where I actually want to save that to. So like I mentioned before, we can save that to internal memory or local storage. If I had a USB drive, it would appear here also. But I can also just access my cloud storage as well. So it's really easy to save directly back to my cloud storage there, directly from the whiteboard. A couple of other features I want to mention, we can actually share this, and there's a number of ways we can share this. Once again, I can generate a QR code so people in the same room could scan that on their mobile phones or tablets and take that whiteboarding session with them to view that as a PDF later on. If I have an email address attached to the panel, I can email that out to recipients, or I can print it via a network printer as well. And then two more features I want to mention before we move on from our whiteboard. You'll notice that this is typically known as a recording button, and it's exactly the same within EasyWrite. I can't show you the recording feature today just because we're using Zoom and recording on that. But if I was to hit this, we'd have a little recording notification up in this top right-hand corner. And this is recording everything that we see on screen. It's recording any annotation I make. And because we have a built-in microphone array either side of the panel, it's actually recording my voice as well. And it's recording this into an MP4 format. And once again, it's another universal format. So we can send this video or this recording onto other people who may have missed that meeting or weren't available at the time, and they can review it on their own device, which is a really cool feature. This will save natively to our internal storage, but then we can just copy and paste that to another storage medium like cloud storage or a portable drive as well. So really cool feature. You can record, each recording has a maximum length of 59 minutes and 59 seconds, so almost an hour there, and then it will just stop recording. If your meeting goes for longer than that, you would just hit record again and have a separate recording for the rest of that meeting there as well. And then finally, last but not least, and this is probably the coolest feature of our whiteboard, if I click on the little man here with the plus symbol, this brings up a menu that's our room menu, and you can see there we can invite or join. The join option allows us to link two BenQ panels together. And this is really cool if we have offices in different geographical locations. We can join a session and link these two boards and collaborate and work on the same whiteboarding session no matter where we are. And so if I was to click on the join here, it'll start a new session. So every time we start a cloud whiteboard, it wants to start a new session there. So just be aware of that. But it will always give you the option to save your existing whiteboard. And then here we just enter our name. So we might enter what office we're in. And then it's asking for a room ID. So just keep that in mind where I go to the next option here. And that's to invite people. So we obviously need a host board, and then other people can join that. And not only can we do board to board, but anyone can join one of these whiteboarding sessions on their own personal device. And I'll get into that right now. So if I hit invite, anyone in the same meeting space, once again, can use their mobile phone or tablet to scan that QR code and join in. When you do that, it'll actually give you an option, a little pop down on your screen to open your browser. And this will work with Chrome or Safari. So they're the two browsers that are supported. So you can obviously access this on your iOS devices, Android devices, or PC as well via the Chrome browser. So you can scan that if you have a QR code reader. If you don't and you're on a laptop, you can just access this by typing in easywrite.benq.com into your browser. And then this room ID, which is what we needed to join the session previously, any participant will just enter this room ID when prompted. And that will join to this particular whiteboard, this cloud whiteboarding session as well. If you want to join this session today, guys, on your own devices, please feel free to go ahead now and scan that QR code or enter that website with the room ID. I'll leave it up on screen just for a few moments longer there. All right, hopefully that gave you enough time to join. If you need it back up, just type in the chat and I'll bring that code back up. But for anyone who's joined, you'll be able to see the whiteboard as we see it on my shared screen here. And I'll start annotating, and you should be able to see that annotation in real time. So a couple of things to note here. We're all on different internet connections. So as long as you have a Chrome or Safari browser on your device and you have a stable internet connection, you can join this cloud whiteboarding session. So all of you can see that at the moment who have joined, but you won't be able to annotate or contribute at the moment. And there's a good reason for that. Down in this bottom toolbar again, we have what looks like a little octopus, but this is what's known as our broadcast or our permission setting. And at the moment, I'm on broadcast, which means myself as the host, I'm the only one who can contribute to this whiteboard session at the moment. However, if I swap this over to co-creation, you can see we're all linking hands there, it means that anyone who has joined that session will be able to start annotating there. You've also got access to sticky notes, which I didn't show you before, but you'll have a sticky note icon similar to this one here, and you'll be able to add your own sticky notes as well. And I can add one on the board there. Jerry in Queensland. Thank you very much, Jerry. So we can add our own sticky notes, and we can just change the color of that. And these just become images that I can move around, and I can actually go in there and edit there as well, and change the text or change the color of that sticky note too. So really cool to get your ideas across there and collaborate across different geographical areas there also. Really cool if you have sort of field agents or traveling reps, and they're able to join in with that collaboration as well. One of the cool use case scenarios we've found is for real estate agents who are able to take photos of like real estate that they're viewing at the moment and send that back to the office and collaborate around ideas for different advertisements and that kind of thing as well. And so they can just take a photo on their camera and import that directly into the whiteboard, which is a really cool feature there as well. You can also add images from your photo library, which is a really cool feature there. Obviously, the larger that file size is, and someone's adding a file there now, which is great. Thank you. BenQ logo there. And so we can just move that around as well. So it's a really cool feature. And the great thing is that if collaboration gets out of control a little bit and I want to sort of draw back on that, I can just swap that back to broadcast mode there. And you'll notice on your devices that your toolbar there will be grayed out. And so you will no longer be able to annotate, but myself as the host will be able to continue to annotate here on the screen as well. If I just change my color there real quick. And so I'll be able to continue the session, and people in that session will still be able to view it. A couple of things to note here. Like I mentioned, anyone can join this, Chrome or Safari with an internet connection, and there's no limit on participants, okay? So we've tested it with over 50 participants before, and it works perfectly fine. Obviously, the more participants in there, the more crazy it's gonna get as far as collaboration goes when you change to that co-creation mode. So just be aware of that. I would keep it within a normal sort of range of sort of 10 to 20 people, maybe at maximum there, but it can support more than that, just so you know. One other limitation there as well with the co-creation mode is that it's a free-for-all. If I turn it on the co-creation, I don't have permission settings where I can limit participation there with that collaboration session. So just be aware of that. If we enable co-creation, it means anyone who's joined that session can contribute to that whiteboard as well. Now, when we're done with this cloud whiteboard, you can actually, any participants who have joined this can save it to their own device. You have a little save disk icon there, and they can take that with them. And I can save this obviously on my panel, just like I would normally with a normal session here as well. But once I'm done with the cloud whiteboard and I hit stop activities, a little notification will pop up on your own device there, just saying that the interaction's ended. But I can continue this session locally on my BenQ panel as well. So anyone in the same room as me will be able to view that, and will be able to carry on and add additions to that whiteboarding session as well. So that's what's known as our cloud whiteboard feature, a really cool feature that we're pretty proud of. It hasn't been out for all that long now, and it's something that we'll be improving in the future as well. But that's it for Easy Write. I know that's a lot of content. I haven't even covered half of it today, but we need to move on because we are quite short on time. And so there's just two more things I really want to touch on as far as software goes on the panel. I'm just going to go back to my home screen here. I mentioned these sidebars before, these quick menus, and the icon down the bottom here is our floating toolbar. And this will bring up this toolbar here that you can see. You can also bring this up by pressing two fingers against the screen and holding them there for a couple of seconds, just like a peace sign against the screen there. And that'll activate this floating toolbar. And the great thing about this toolbar is that I can activate this on my desktop, obviously, but if I have any apps open, I can activate this over the top of that as well. Or if I change source, so if I'm on HDMI, if I have my Windows NUC there connected, or my slot in PC, and I'm using Windows, I can still activate this toolbar on that source as well, which is really cool. And this allows me to do a couple of things. I can just start annotating over the top of any source here. So I'm annotating my background at the moment, but I can annotate within a browser or on a Windows document that I have open on my other HDMI source. And so this is as it's called, a floating toolbar, it's a floating layer there. So it's not attached to that. We're not actually making any changes to the app we have open or the document we have open there as well. So one caveat to that I just want to mention is that if we start scrolling down the screen, this annotation won't stick to that screen, okay? Because it doesn't realize what's beneath it. It's simply floating on top. But you'll notice a couple of different icons around here, and I'll just run through these really quickly. So this one allows us to jump straight back into our Easy Write whiteboarding session. We can erase any annotation we've made with the floating toolbar. We can open our file manager with this icon here. And then these last two. So we've already had a look at recording. So recording works outside of Easy Write as well. Recording is limited strictly to the Android platform. So if I swap over to Windows and try and record, it won't record that HDMI source. But it will record anything that I open on this Android platform. So any of the apps I open, browser, etc. It will record everything it sees on screen. Once again, it will record that annotation I make, and it'll also record my voice. So exactly the same as Easy Write, it will record it as an MP4 format also. So that's available from the floating tool. The other icon I want to point out is this camera icon. And you'll notice now I have a frame around the outside edge of my panel there. I can just use the draw tabs to change the size of that frame essentially and move that frame around just by tapping and dragging my finger across the screen. And you'll notice I have a couple of options within this frame. I can resize it to full screen. I can save this just as its own image, or I can import this directly back into Easy Write. And so you'll see here that that's just added it into my existing whiteboarding session there, and it's taking that snapshot from my desktop. And this is its own icon, and I can obviously shrink that down using pinching gestures, just like I would on my own tablet or touch device there as well. And sure, I've just taken a quick photo of my desktop, which may be not that helpful, but you can imagine if I'm in a browser on the Android system or I have a document open up on there and I want to add that content into my whiteboarding session, it's a really handy tool just to snap that content and add it directly back in there and continue to collaborate as well. So that's all accessible on our floating toolbar. Once again, it just lives in our sidebar, or you can press two fingers against the screen. To move this around, I just tap and hold on the center icon. I can move that around the screen where I see fit. And then to exit that toolbar, it's just a one tap on that center icon to make that disappear. Moving along, InstaShare. So you'll see this icon here. It obviously lives in our apps as well, just here as well. And this is our whilst casting app. So we're able to cast from our own devices here. And this is a software solution that's built into our panel, ready to go as soon as you purchase one. And the only prerequisite for this is that I need to be on the same network as the panel. So this is just a local mirroring solution. You can't do this remotely. And you'll notice a couple of things here. I can actually mirror up to 4 devices simultaneously to this panel. And this relies on a software solution that we can download to our own device. So how do we do that? We can just click on the connection guide here that lives at the base. And once again, we have QR codes here, so we can scan those with our mobile devices or our tablets, or we can just open our browser on our own device and type in this IP address. This IP address will be specific to your own BenQ panel there, and that'll just take you to a landing page where you can select your own operating system and download the InstaShare app there. So really easy to get your hands on. If people aren't familiar with QR codes, you can just jump into the Google Play Store or the iOS Store and search for BenQ InstaShare there as well and download the app directly from those respective stores too. But what I want to show you is how we can cast to this. So I'm just going to cast my own phone here, and I can actually use just the AirPlay protocol on an Apple iPhone here. And you'll notice that it'll give me a little pop-up where it's asking me if I want to allow this person to start casting. And so if I click on that, you can see that I have my phone there. And I mentioned before that we can have up to 4 different devices. So in the casting list on the right-hand side, you can see that we have a little quadrant there. This is Dan trying to connect as well to allow him to connect. And you can see Dan's Windows laptop there as well. If I change that to the 4 quadrant, we can add another couple of devices here as well. And the cool thing about this is that if I want to zoom in on one of those and make it full screen, I can just tap, it might be a little bit hard to see, but I can just tap this arrow, this 4 arrow button here, and that will go to the full screen there. And then if I want to minimize that and go back to my quadrant view, I can do that and jump into my iPhone, for instance, as well. And so we can cast videos and YouTube and that kind of thing, or we can display any contents that we want as well. So if you have multiple participants in that meeting that want to show their projects or their contents, we can have them all casting simultaneously there as well. And the cool thing about Windows devices is that we actually have touch back here as well. So I'm using my mouse today, obviously, I don't think it works with the mouse actually. So it's working? Yeah. Oh yeah, cool. So there might be a bit of lag because of the mouse there. And then so we can actually use touchback here as well. So with normal touch, it works pretty much instantaneously. It takes a little bit of time to navigate with the mouse there. But what it means is that we can leave our computer to the side, or if we're using a NUC there, we can just utilize that Windows environment with touchscreen capability as well. So it's really handy in that regard. And then when I'm done with this screen, I can just go back and minimize that as well. So a really cool program that's built in. There's no costs associated with this, and so it's good to go. And we don't need any extra hardware to get this solution up and running there also. So a really cool feature there that's built into the panel. And I'll recap this in my PowerPoint, which I might share now as well. So just bear with me. And let me just go back in here and we'll pick up where we left off here. All right, so to recap on InstaShare, so we can do up to 4 split screen, and we actually have two-way mirroring as well. So what does that mean? You've seen how we can mirror from our own devices to the panel, but we can also mirror from the panel back to our own devices. So if we're in a large meeting space, or we have vision impaired people within that meeting space, they're able to see exactly what's on the panel in real time on their own device in front of their face. So it's a really cool feature in that regard. And we can support up to 16 devices that are mirroring from the panel back to their own personal device. We also have two-way touch control that I mentioned. It's a little bit laggy on stream because we're running Zoom and recording at the same time and with the mouse, but it actually works really fluently, and that's available on Windows devices only. But as far as InstaShare is concerned, we can access this on a multitude of platforms, including iOS, Android, macOS, Chrome, and Windows environments. A couple of things I want to touch on before we wrap up here, guys. We also have a whole range of back-end management systems. And so Exxon Broadcast allows us to send content or real-time scheduled broadcasts to our panels or to our fleet of panels there as well. So if there's a certain announcement we want to get into all those meeting rooms with BenQ panels, we can set that up and send those messages out to appear on those panels simultaneously as well. So it's a really cool back-end feature. And this is all cloud-based, so we can access this from the browser, and we don't necessarily have to be on site to do this. So IT admins are real advocates of this kind of feature. The other thing that I've already mentioned is our AMS, which is our account management system. And that allows us to personalize that public display device with our own settings and our own wallpaper and our icons there, and also give us access to our cloud storage through Google Drive, Dropbox, or OneDrive. And once again, we can set this up via a web portal, which is really easy to manage as well for ITS managers. And then finally with DMS, which is a display management system. This is a back-end system as well. And this allows us to do a couple of really cool things. It allows us to control or alter display settings as an IT admin. We can install apps remotely or install new firmware remotely as well. So no longer do we have to be in front of the panel to do that kind of thing. And then this allows us to manage those groups of devices as well and make sure they're up to date and all aligned there with specific apps or settings as well. And then we also have a partnership with TeamViewer. So if we need to remotely access our panels, we can do that through the TeamViewer app, which is installed on our panels. And it works just like it would on your own laptop. So if an IT admin needs to gain access to that panel, there's issues there, or they want to show a user how to access a certain feature, they can remotely log into that panel using the TeamViewer app and access that also. So just a recap on sort of what we've seen today. As far as design goes, we had a look at the unique BenQ design for our RP series, including the soundbar, the NFC tag, and the NFC sensor there to log in with our profiles. We have obviously our pen tray with our annotation tools, and that remote controller that has a couple of really cool features like digital pointer and spotlight there too. We had a look at classroom care, or what we call healthcare as well, which is our anti-glare, low blue light and flicker-free technology in association with our germ-resistant coating on our screen and also our air quality sensor there as well. And then we have our software. So we had a good look at EasyWrite 5.0, including that cloud whiteboard feature, which is really handy for remote collaboration. And then our annotation tool, which allows us to annotate on top of different apps and different sources there, as well as take screenshots and record on that Android platform also. And then we had a look at the wireless solution there as well with the InstaShare and being able to cast from our own devices up to 4 simultaneously to the panel and cast back from that panel to our own devices too. And like I mentioned previously, that cloud whiteboard feature is really important also. And then we had a quick overview of our device management with AMS, DMS, and Exime broadcast there as well. And just to leave you with 10 key features here. But what I might do before I jump into this is that I mentioned being able to utilize that Windows environment. And we can do that in 2 ways. And the first way I showed you was via InstaShare and Dan being able to cast his laptop there so we can cast our own Windows environments to the panels and utilize touch as well. But what I might do is just stop sharing here and swap over to my camera and pin that really quick. Let me just pin this really quickly for you guys. Sorry, it won't be a second. And it's going to look a little bit like Inception here, but let me just get rid of that really quickly. All right, so you should be able to see the camera with the panel there. And what I can do is swap source. So I can jump over here. I have my source selection here. I'm just going to log in to my Windows platform really quickly. But I have a NUC connected to this IFP, and that allows me to connect it via HDMI. And I also have a touch cable running from that computer as well. So if I swap sources here just by double tapping on that, you'll notice that this window environment is going to come up in a second. I am sharing screen, I believe. Just bear with me. I think it's because it's on sleep. All right. So guys, I'm just going to log in here really quickly. Just bear with me. All right, beautiful. So you guys should be able to see that Windows environment now. And what this allows me to do is that it gives me touch feedback as well, like I mentioned. So just simply by swapping source, and I can go back and forth here as well. So I can just go back to my home screen and jump back and forth. And then we can just go back to our source and chop and change. So the great thing about BenQ panels is that we can just go back and forth between our 2 sources there as well and utilize those 2 different environments. And obviously in the corporate workspace, we have a real need for that Windows environment. It's what most of our systems are based on. And like I mentioned before, we actually have touch feedback. So I'm just going to walk up to the screen and I can just access the touch here as well. And so I can just use touch functionality to scroll through my menus and that kind of thing as well. So it operates just like a really big touch panel there as well. So it works intuitively as well. We've gone from a touch-based system on Android, and now we can utilize that touch-based functionality also on our Windows platform, which is really handy. And then when I'm done with that, I can just chop back to our Android system there as well, which is really cool. So I just want to touch base on that as well. That's obviously a really big key feature that we need to promote there and make available to you guys in that corporate space for that Windows environment. I'm just going to go back to my share screen and we'll have a quick look at 10 key features here as well. All right, so you guys should be able to see that now. Beautiful. So let's have a look and have a recap here of what we've seen today. So we touched on EasyWrite 5.0 here in the top left-hand corner with our cloud-based collaboration and annotation tools. And obviously that cloud whiteboard is a big feature of that and being able to collaborate remotely. We had a look at the floating toolbar here as well. So we have cross-platform annotation tool and being able to annotate on top of any surface or screenshot on top of any source there is really handy. And then we had a look at our InstaShare app down the bottom here in the bottom left-hand corner there as well, and being able to wirelessly cast. We had a look at our healthcare solution here as well with air quality sensor, germ-resistant screen, and obviously that low blue light, flicker-free, and anti-glare technology. And then we had a quick overview of our back-end systems as well, and which are really helpful for our IT admins to manage those devices remotely. And I obviously mentioned our fine IR touch technology, which gives us a really fluid and accurate response to our annotation, and also being able to utilize some different modes there. I didn't go into this, but we have a dual pen mode where we can select different colors and annotate simultaneously per pen. So it's great for collaboration and being able to keep track of our ideas and that kind of thing there as well. And so that's all made possible via that infrared technology. And that's it. I think I've spoken for long enough. We've got a little bit, we've got a couple of minutes now, guys. If you have any questions, Dan, I'm not sure if there's any questions in the chat as we went along there.
Nothing's come up yet, John.
Okay, cool.
You've done an awesome job today, obviously.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to sing out on your mic, or if you want to punch them in the chat now, I'm more than happy to respond to those now. All right, guys, if there's not any questions there, we might wrap it up today. Dan, do you want to add some links in there?
Yeah, I'm just going to drop some links into the chat box there. So keep it open for a little while and cut and paste them. They are education-based case studies, but you obviously get the idea of the feature set and how they're being used. Also, a copy of the brochure as well, and the links to our website where you can have a look a little bit more from the BenQ website. Obviously, they're hosted on the Toshiba website as well.
Yeah, so Toshiba will have access to this recording also. So if you want to recap it or revisit it, just contact your Toshiba team members there, and they'll be able to help you out with that resource also. But if there's no questions there, guys, we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for attending today. I really appreciate your time and your patience there. And if you do have any more questions, like I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to your Toshiba representatives, and they'll be able to assist you further there. But thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Cheers.
Thank you.